Hey guys, welcome back to Kryptonite. Be your own bank. On this channel, I teach you the intricacies of cryptocurrency, the intricacies of the blockchain, so you become a blockchain master and you can utilize all the functions that crypto has to offer, guys, because crypto allows you to be your own bank. You can do what the banks do. The banks take your money. It's called fractional reserve banking. They take your money. They say, hey, look, put your money in our bank. We'll give you a little security. We'll take care of it. We'll put security guards at our banks, right? And they take your money and they invest it and they make money. And then they're like, oh, I'll give you a 0.0%, 0.01%. Now, they're a little higher these days just due to the interest rates being so high. But overall, the bank gives you a very, very tiny cut of what your money could be making if you put it to work on the blockchain. And guys, why not put your money to work? They're like, money's like your little employees. Put them to work. Make that money. Make some money, guys. So that's what I'm here to teach you on this channel. I talk about crypto news. I give you all the different updates going on in the crypto world, the regulations, the different cryptocurrencies that I like, that I'm invested in, that I use, the blockchains that I use on a daily basis. These are all the things I'm super passionate about because I believe that crypto is very important for humans because it gives us the ability to have control over our money and that self-sovereignty. Okay, if you have your money in a bank, the bank could, probably not going to happen if you're in America, but this does happen around the world in other places that are more corrupt. Sometimes people are cut off from their bank accounts because the bank goes insolvent, which we had a couple banks in the US go insolvent, and people had to wait to get their money out. There were some places in, I believe, China where banks went insolvent. People couldn't get their money out, right? You run that risk. You also run the risk of maybe not so much now and maybe not so much in our country as of now, thanks to the new administration coming up. But in other countries where, again, it's a little more corrupt, if you don't agree with the political world at the time, the political power, well, they can also cut you off from your funds. Okay, that's called a bank. That's called a centralized entity, a central point of failure that can take you away from your money. And we don't like that. And that's what crypto solves. Crypto allows you to hold your money in a wallet that only you have access to, that you can send to anyone in the world, peer-to-peer, and that you can use. You can send to any exchange, maybe not any exchange. Some of the US ones might ban you, but there's plenty of exchanges. If you needed to access your money, you could. You could pull that money out, and you could use that money because there are different places that are starting to accept crypto as well as just a straight payment. And there's plenty of places in the world you could go to access that money if your country in particular has some rule against it or something like that. So it allows you control over your money, which is super, super important, guys. Once we lose control of our money, once we have a central bank digital currency, you know what happens then, guys? That's called basically communism, totalitarianism, whatever you want to call it. We've seen it throughout history and throughout time. When you control the money supply, you control and you micromanage your people, and it usually turns bad because absolute power corrupts absolutely. So usually in these scenarios, very bad things happen. Genocides, just lots of death, lots of bad things happen when people are so heavily micromanaged and controlled. It's just bad, okay? That's why we left freaking England and came here in America, have that freedom, right? We don't want that. Okay, so let's talk about some news today. And before we get into the crypto, I'm going to touch a little bit on real estate. And the reason I want to do this because I think it's really important to understand the drawbacks of real estate and also the pros of real estate. And I thought I'd highlight a great conversation I was having on Facebook actually with a buddy of mine. Shout out to Zach here. And he was posting this chart showing, here's an example of a rent versus buy scenario. And so he's, hey, buy investment in the home. It's good. Look how much more you're going to make because of the appreciation and different things like that. And look at the net gain. Look at that over, buying a home versus renting. It's a no-brainer. I should just buy a home tomorrow. It's a no-brainer. Guys, there's more to the story here that unfortunately Zach Ryan is leaving out in this particular case because, guys, what we could do is we could look at the renting costs, which were a lot cheaper monthly payments than what you'd be paying with a mortgage, with property tax, with renovations, with gas and all these other added on things. What if we took the leftovers? Because what he's not accounting for is that when you rent instead of buy, you have leftover money because you can find rent for somewhat affordable. I guess it depends on how much sacrifices you're willing, like, are you willing to live with roommates? If you're willing to live with roommates, you can actually get fairly cheap rent, right? I'm renting here, and it's a good rent price. So I have a lot of leftover money that normally, if I had a home, that would be going straight to my $3,000 to $5,000 monthly mortgage payment, because I'm paying interest on the home itself that's super expensive. I'm paying property taxes on that home. I'm paying for home insurance. There's a lot, repairs. Maybe I need a new water heater. Maybe I need a new AC. Different things that happen, right? Those are all costs associated with owning a home. Now, I'm not against owning a home, but here's what he's missing in this thing is, let's say you rented, but let's say you took all the leftover money. Just I'm throwing out some numbers here. These are not like accurate in any way, but they're accurate. You get the idea. So let's say you rent for $800 and your mortgage payment would be like $3,000. Well, guys, that's $2,200 that you're not paying towards your mortgage, right? Okay, so that's leftover money, right? So what if you took some of that after your normal expenses and you invested it into, let's say, the S&P 500, a basic one, or you could lose your money, by the way. So maybe he has a point in terms of there is maybe a little more risk if you're going to go like individual stocks. That's very risky, right? If you just did index funds, they give you a solid, 8 to 12% return per year, and you took all that leftover money and you just consistently invest it in the S&P 500. Boom, boom, boom. Guess what happens to this chart? It goes to zero. It becomes break even. Possibly even, you could even make more money in the stock market. Because the stock market and housing, they both go up. So, and here's the thing. You run the risk. If you own a home and you buy in a bad location, that property could go down in value. You buy the S&P 500, it's probably going to go up, right? Because it's just made up of the top 500 companies in the U.S. And so there's a lot less risk to just investing in the S&P 500, for example, consistently with that leftover money that you're not paying on the mortgage payment with all those added things combined, right? So this is misleading. This is misleading, unfortunately, because it's not that simple. If you invested the leftovers in the S&P 500, you'd have less risk because you don't have to worry about location, and you would make just as good of money, if not better. So throw this out, guys. And then I added on to the conversation. I said, hey, look, if you plan on owning the home for 10 plus years, then a home is actually, a good investment, especially if you can rent out rooms to bring down that monthly payment, right? Until you can refinance or until you have more of it paid off, right? And I did mention the market, I don't believe will crash anymore, guys. I hate to say it. I know you Gen Zers are all hoping for a market crash because, guys, in 2008, and especially after COVID, a lot of single family homes were transferred to the pockets of investors. Now, investors don't sell property because property, like I'll mention here a little later, property is a cash flow, okay? So like so I said this, and then he replied, hey, in many markets, you don't need 10 years. I don't know about that. Maybe some. I'd say to be safe, you want, 5 to 10 years for sure. Maybe certain markets. He says that, he was obviously looking that here's what he thinks is going to happen in like this area. So here's what, so according to his, thing there, you could make some money, right? But again, he's not accounting for getting cheap rent potentially and then using the leftovers to invest in the S&P 500. He's not accounting for that, right? So that could, so blah, blah, blah. And he's saying, hey, you're, the only plus of buying a home is when you lock in an interest rate, later on you can refinance potentially to get it lower. So that's a plus. 2, it's fixed. So it's not going to go any higher. So technically, as inflation increases, which it will, because we're in a debt spiral, like I've said many times on my channel, inflation has to go up. So when inflation goes up, it makes old debt cheaper if your wages are going up with inflation. So usually inflation drives wages to go up. So if you get a fixed interest rate and then inflation goes up and then you get a raise, well, now that old debt is cheaper. It's cheaper debt. Okay, so that's one of the benefits of like a 30-year fixed mortgage. Refinance later, it's fixed. If inflation goes up, which it will, and your wages go up, which hopefully they will, although they have not kept pace with the amount of inflation by any stretch of the imagination. So that's not even really a sure thing. Then that debt is cheaper and you're in a good position. Okay, so those are some caveats that have to happen. So here's what I replied. I said, look, there's no reason for investors to sell. It's cash flow. If I'm renting out a property, it's paying for itself. It's paying the mortgage, and it could be making me more money on top of that, potentially, right? Or in the future, it's going to just make you pure cash flow. So if I'm an investor, investors typically have a lot of investments. They're doing well. They don't need to sell property. Property is not something you sell. It's a cash flow. You don't sell property. It doesn't make sense to. So yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. Single family homes are more likely to sell because guess what happens? A single family home is more than likely living kind of more of a paycheck to paycheck. So if one spouse loses their job, guess what? Are you going to make that $3,000 to $5,000 mortgage payment on one income with maybe you have some kids, maybe you have other expenses? Not going to happen. You sell, you downsize, right? That's what happens. Single family homes they're not investors. They're not looking at it from a cash flow perspective. They're not renting out their rooms for cash flow. It's them and their spouse and their kids. They're not getting any money from renters, right? Investors buy to rent out, so that way they get cash flow. Okay, so there's a huge difference between those two types of people, and because of the inflation and everything, unfortunately, that does transfer a lot of assets to average middle class Americans. That transfers it to investors. Unfortunately, we don't want that necessarily because we want the middle class to be strong, but that's what inflation does to your country. It literally just steals wealth from a majority of people and gives it to a very select few. People don't understand that. People think that inflation is a good thing. We're stuck in it, but it's honestly a wealth transfer. It just basically you have a middle class, you have a few poor, you have a few rich. That's how countries start out. Then you inflate the money, and guess what happens? Here, it goes like this, right? It goes, and then this small group of people are super rich, and now this is your poor people, right? That's what inflation does. Okay, that's just what it does. Especially you add on taxation on top of that. That's what happens. So people think that it's not a good thing. It literally just steals wealth from people who don't have assets. People have assets and they get filthy stinking rich. Okay, it shouldn't be that way. I don't like it that way. As an investor, I'm going to take advantage because that's the world I live in, and that's the hand I've been dealt, and I have to do what's best for me and my people. You know what I mean? I'm gonna use that money for good things. I'm gonna use that to help people and help my family and help people who really need it. So I trust the money will be in good hands with me, but there are other people that might just not do good things with that money. Okay, so inflation, bad, steals wealth from Americans. So back to this. So I mentioned, look, that's not going to happen. There's not going to be a crash. Sorry, guys. And again, home is only a decent investment if you're not investing the leftovers. If you're not going to invest the leftovers at all, then yeah, you should buy a home because at least you're investing in something with the leftovers, right? So if that money's just sitting in cash and being inflated away, then yeah, you should use that money to buy a home. I agree with that. But again, if the leftovers you're using it to invest in something else, then different story. So yeah, blah blah blah. I think home ownership is a good thing. I think people do well when they own things and they take care of things. I think that's a very human thing that we need. But I had some friends who their mental health went downhill. Why? Because they bought a home. And that home was a very expensive home with a very expensive interest rate, with a very expensive property tax, with some expensive home insurance, with maybe some expensive renovations and repairs. So their monthly payment is sky high, and they are stressed out of their gourd because their jobs aren't really making enough to, make that monthly payment. And then what do they have left over? Nothing, right? Like they're investing in something, but you got to live, right? You got to food and different things like that, right? So that's not good. You don't want to be in that kind of situation. Me personally, I've thought about putting a down payment on a house in the last couple of years, but I'm like, I can, find cheaper rent. I've lived out of my car for a time even, and I just took all the leftovers and I just invested in an asset that I believed in, which is cryptocurrency, and it's doing well, and it's made me a much better return than I could have if I even qualified for a house. That kind of. You got to go through that process too. Do you even qualify for a house? If they look at your debt to income, would they even give you a house in the first place, right? Not for everyone, especially with the credit card debt we have. You might not get approved for a house. Again, it just puts you in a tough situation to cover those mortgage payments until you can refinance or until inflation brings your wages up, like I mentioned. So, hey, if you want to get a home and you can go in with some people maybe and rent out a couple rooms for a while, refinance later, that's doable. That's doable. You just got to be smart about it, guys. Just don't listen to people that just tell you buy a home. You got to be smart about it. You got to think things through. It's not as simple as this nice little chart, right? This chart is they didn't invest any of the leftovers, and they had to, that person didn't lose their job at all. Both spouses kept their job so they could pay the mortgage payment, and they refinanced because interest rates were lower, and hopefully their wages went up. Those are things we don't know that happened here. And then they didn't invest the leftovers, so it's like this is kind of it's a little wooey. It's a little wooey, okay? So I'm giving you the brass tacks here on this channel, guys. And if you like it, make sure to hit that like and subscribe. I give you the brass tacks on this channel. I give you the truth, because the truth is going to set you free, guys. All right, let's jump into some crypto news. Cantor Fitzgerald, led by Trump's Commerce Secretary nominee, struck a deal to acquire a 5% stake in Tether. So Tether, if you don't know what that is a stablecoin, USDT. It is basically backed 1-to-1 by the US dollar, and it's something that we use in the crypto sphere all the time. It's very commonly used on blockchains to have USDT, because if I want to trade, for example, and I want to, I'll probably buy some USDT or some USDC, which is another stablecoin. I'll send it to my wallet. I'll interact with a blockchain, and I'll sell my USDT for Bitcoin or Solana, and then in the future I sell it back into USDT, or maybe I just lend out my USDT for 5 to 15% on a blockchain, something like that. You can get pretty good rates on blockchains. You can get, especially right now, you can get pretty high, up 15%. That's better than any bank's going to get you, right? So Tether is one of these institutions that has 1-to-1 back to US dollar. And so it's generally trustworthy. There is some FUD that kind of happens sometimes where people say, oh, they don't really have the money to back it and stuff like that. But USDT's been around quite a while, and it's pretty trustworthy to use. And it looks like he's going to be working as a regulator to help out the Trump administration. So it's cool to see a pro-crypto, a person in crypto, being put in this position to help regulate the industry going forward. We want people in crypto, like me, for example, and other people who've been in the world, who understand what's going on, understand how to use these things. We need those people making regulation, not these people in these old boomers in the White House who never even barely know how to use computers are trying to put regulation on crypto or say it's a scam or dude, you barely can use a computer. Don't talk to me about the blockchain and trying to regulate it. Get people who actually know what they're doing to regulate the blockchain. So I could go off about that. It's so frustrating seeing that. So that's pretty cool. Did want to give you a quick warning here. Coinbase is going to probably list more meme coins under the Trump administration, which is, it's not a bad thing in terms of, it's giving them more freedom because there's not so much regulatory scrutiny on what's a security and what's not. And so Coinbase in the past has had to not offer coins. They couldn't offer XRP for a long time because of the lawsuit and because it was is this a security? Is it not? Because, Gary Gensler, check out my last video, learn more about that, was, going after it. And so now that it looks like that it's going to ease up and there's going to be clarity, Coinbase is going to look to add some smaller tokens they couldn't add before, such as some meme coins. Again, if you watch my last video, I think I even talked about in previous video before, meme coins are not the move, guys. If you've got 1 to 5% of your portfolio that you want to just say screw it, just do some gambling, this is for you. This is for you. But please, please do not risk more than 5% of your portfolio on these gambling coins that have no real purpose. It's just hype. It's just a way for someone who created it to just cash out because they probably have a bunch of coins, and as soon as it goes up, because they hype it, they dump on you, my friend. And if you're one of the lucky few to get out with some money, then that's great, but there's going to be way more people who are going to end up with zero because Meme coins, unfortunately, don't serve any real purpose for crypto. In fact, they actually give crypto more of a bad name. They make people think that it's gambling. No, Bitcoin is not gambling. Ethereum is not gambling. These are businesses. These are businesses with profits and apps and services. Now, those are called businesses. Meme coins are not businesses. They are gambling coins. So if you want to dabble in that, feel free. I'm not really a fan on this channel. I'm not really a big believer in the get rich quick schemes. I think you should invest in infrastructure and you should invest in things that actually make the world a better place. And guess what, guys? A lot of these blockchains make the world a better place. Meme coins don't really make the world a better place. They're going to make the world a sad place when some rich guy dumps all his coins on you and you're left holding the bag and you're like, man, I just got like a $3,000 check and it's all gone. And you're like a normal person trying to pay your bills, right? Not smart, guys. Don't invest in meme coins. Invest in infrastructure. Invest in good quality projects like I talk about here on my channel. For example, I've been investing in ADA, which I think is a great project. Look how well it's doing. Aave. I've invested in Aave. They're a lending platform. They have a real financial instrument that people can use. That's going up in value. Ethereum has apps, has users, has transactions, has profit. Invest in that. That goes up, right? Invest in real projects, real things, real businesses. That's what I'm about on this channel. Don't invest in meme coins, guys. Lastly, I won't go into this too much. I'm just going to briefly touch on this. I might go into this more in the future. For those of you who are trying to understand just the basics of what crypto is, I won't go through this whole article because it's a little bit more on the technical side. But I just want to touch on a couple of things. So basically, here's a great way to kind of sum up a little bit what blockchains are. So decentralized applications, or DApps, they're software programs that run on a blockchain, right? Which is a network of computers that is typically people around the world. That's a blockchain, right? If what most people use is what's called a Web 2 app, right? And let me find it here. So here's a web app. So here's UberX. We all know about UberX. We all know about X, or previously Twitter, right? We don't. These are like, you might be on Twitter. You might use Twitter, right? You probably used it, called an Uber before. So these run on a computer system, same way as crypto, but they're maintained by a corporation who has direct control of the program and its functionality. That's what we would like to call central point of failure. Okay? Those few people way up top making all those decisions for X and for Uber, they could screw up. They could make a huge mistake. They could get caught in a scandal. All sorts of things can happen to these people. And they just might make bad decisions. And they might blow their money. They might freaking take a bunch of money they're making and go invest it in something that goes to zero, and then they're screwed and they go bankrupt. That can happen when you're talking about a corporation, centrally controlled. But if you're talking about a decentralized application that's run on a blockchain, that's peer-to-peer, that has a network of computers, there's no central entity. There's no central point of failure. There's no corporation that can take it down. It's kind of run by the people, if you will. And so people may stop using it, in which case it might lose. There have been some cryptocurrencies that were popular for a time, but then people just stopped using them because maybe better things came out. So I'm not saying that you're completely riskless with something that's decentralized, but again, we like no central point of failure. We like things being run by the people, not by just a few people. Okay? Less likely to mess up. So that's just one way. And I'll probably go into, I'm gonna save this article and I'm gonna go into a future video more in detail of kind of more of, why that makes it censorship resistant, for example, versus a company like UberX that could be, the government could put pressure on them, or people in their company or investors in that company could put pressure on them to be about certain things that maybe they don't want to be about, but they kind of have to. Whereas crypto, these decentralized apps tend to be more decentralized and don't have that. I mean, who are you going to pressure? There's like a bunch of people running these computers around the world. Who are you going to put pressure on? Who? Nope, you can't. There's nobody to put pressure on. There's nobody to force their hand to do what you want. unless you found a way to round up all the people who are running the system. Good luck. Good luck. So that's just one of the benefits. Again, I'm going to save this article for the future. I think this deserves a more in-depth look, but I just wanted to touch on one aspect of cryptocurrency that is probably the best aspect of it, honestly. I mean, there's more to come. There's more to come, guys, but that is an awesome aspect of cryptocurrency. So I'm going to leave you with that for today. And I'm going to continue to update you with the crypto market and the news and everything that's going on and help educate you on this crypto. Because guess what, guys? It's going to happen whether you like it or not. You might as well learn how to use it. So comment below if you're interested in consulting. I can consult with you, help you out, and trying to start my own business here. So I'm not a financial advisor. It's not financial advice. Do your own research, guys. But I love to educate people on crypto and help you learn how to use it safely, because there are ways to use it safely. You just have to follow very hard rules, because there is no bank to bail you out. So tread with caution. Make sure you have a consultant, someone that's walking you through what rules to follow to make sure that you can use these programs safely, guys. That's all I got for today. As always, guys, Kryptonite, be your own bank. See ya.